I'd like to read a sentence from a book called Autobiography of a Yogi by Paramhansa Yogananda. The trivial preoccupations of daily life do not satisfy our deepest needs. For wisdom, too, man has a native hunger. I read this book back in 1948, and I took the next bus from New York, where I found it, to Los Angeles, where I met Paramhansa Yogananda. I lived with him as a close disciple for the rest of his life, and I've been following his teachings all these 41 years. I learned from him an art that is little known in the West, the art of meditation. I want to share what he taught me and what I've learned from years of practice. I want to talk about meditation from a practical point of view and also from a theoretical point of view. I want to mention, too, that meditation is, as the song that we began this series of classes implies, meditation is primarily a means of helping us to know our higher or spiritual nature. But people can use meditation in more abstract ways. They can think of it without devotion and just practicing going into deep inner silence, if they wish. It helps to practice devotion. It helps to feel that we're getting out of this little self and concentrating on a greater self, the infinite self, which is God. It helps to do that because if we have devotion, then our minds tend automatically to soar. However, with or without devotion, wisdom is what we're seeking, awareness, a greater consciousness that includes the broader realities of life and of that true life which is behind the appearances that we see when we look around us with open eyes, an inner world, a world that is your reality, even if it isn't your present awareness or your present awareness of reality. Meditation is a calm mind focused on the higher aspects of your own inner reality. Concentration is being able to remove the mind from all objects of distraction and focus it one-pointedly on any particular object of attention. Meditation is focusing the concentrated mind on God or one of His attributes, or to put it more abstractly, as I said, on your own higher nature. No, many people associate meditation with blankness. In fact, meditation is a very intense state of awareness. You know that there have been times in your life, almost certainly, where you've been so uplifted, so exalted perhaps, so completely aware that you didn't have to stop and analyze. Perhaps you were just looking at something simple like a beautiful sunset, but you were so absorbed in that sunset that you weren't thinking. Meditation is that kind of absorption mentally, with your feelings also, that level of absorption where your mind isn't busy thinking about it, but it's a very intense state of awareness and the very opposite of blankness. And I'll take it a step further and say that blankness is actually a great obstruction to meditation. Passivity, dullness, mental blankness, all of these things are going to take you in the opposite direction from superconsciousness toward subconsciousness. Many people think of it as an escape from reality. In fact, meditation is an escape to reality, you might say, because what our senses show us is not reality. Our senses show us a world that is essentially very different. Matter is only energy. If you could see your body as a scientist would look at it under an electron microscope, you would find vast reaches of space with little electrons here and there. The distance between the atoms in your body, relatively speaking, relative to their size, is as great as the distance between heavenly bodies in outer space. So this we call reality just because we're familiar with it, but it certainly isn't the reality that underlies all of creation. But there's another aspect to that too, and that is that meditation helps you also to come to grips with reality on all levels. So that by meditation you'll find that you can work better, you can get along better with other people, you can do all things better because you will have your mind under control, you will have your consciousness no longer centered in the ego and therefore able to focus on other realities and attune yourself to them so that you can know where other people are coming from, so that you can know what the real problem in your work might be, and so on, all across the board of so-called human realities. Not at all. Great saints in Christianity, the great prophets of old, all found the need to go off and pray deeply. And what is prayer if you only do the talking? If I were only to converse with somebody and not listen for his answer, wouldn't the conversation fall a bit flat? Meditation is, after prayer, listening for an answer, listening for God's answer, listening to the inspiration that you feel from above. And how can that be un-Christian? How can it be un-Jewish? How can it be anything spiritual? The purpose of spiritual living is to put us in tune with higher realities, and meditation is that stillness of mind beyond any kind of rites and beliefs, just stilling your mind, as the Bible says, be still and know that I am God. In that mental stillness, then you can know. Everybody needs meditation, really, because everybody needs calmness, everybody needs peace of mind, everybody needs a focus to his life, his awareness, his spiritual growth, his aspirations. Meditation helps to bring everything into focus. It's like having a camera. I remember when I was a boy, my parents gave me a telescope, and I was so excited because I looked at the moon and I could see trees growing on it. And I didn't realize that I had merely got the lens unfocused and I was looking at bits of dirt on the lens. And so meditation is that which brings things into focus, focuses our mind so that we can see clearly what the realities around us are, whether they be spiritual or mundane. There's nothing possibly anti-religious of any kind in such a practice. Well, first of all, I would say that meditation and faith are the really most practical things of all. Jesus said, "Seek the kingdom of God first, and all these things shall be added unto you." And so, it's the most practical thing in the world, but let's put it on a practical level then. Let's put it on a mundane level, since we're pleased to call this world real, and therefore anything that relates to this world practical. I would say that that which is most practical is that which helps you to grow in the thing that you're going to take with you when you leave this world. But in this world, okay, let's call this practical. Yes, meditation is practical that way too. It can be combined with practicality. It is practical because the clearer your mind is, the more quickly you can find solutions to your problems. The clearer your mind is, the more directly you can channel your energy. The clearer your mind is, the more you can do anything well. And in fact, this is an experience that I've observed in myself, in others who meditate, that when people don't have their minds under control, then they may take hours, days, weeks. They may never even find solutions to some simple problem. And a person who meditates calms his mind, meditates on the solution to the problem, and in 1 second he can get the answer. In 1 minute he can get the answer. It can take no time at all if you put the energy right, if you direct your mind calmly and concentratedly and ask your higher self for guidance instead of this conscious mind that tends to go just in circles. The conscious mind is problem-oriented. The superconscious mind, the soul aspect of our being, is solution-oriented. And the more you can bring that kind of consciousness down, the more you will find that solutions come to you without any trouble at all. They're just there. Meditation is absolutely the most practical thing I know. I found that people can do in a day what it takes other people maybe many months to accomplish. Meditation is, yes, theoretically it's something anyone can do. In a more practical way, maybe not, because some people are so restless they simply can't sit still, or because they simply don't want to find peace. You find so many people in this world who, when they're left alone for 5 minutes, they've got to read a magazine, they've got to chew gum, they've got to sort of rush to the door and say, hey, who's out there, and start talking to themselves if there's nobody else to talk with. They aren't capable psychologically of calming themselves. If, however, they really try, even the most restless person can bring himself to that point where he finds that really, as it says in the Indian scripture, the Bhagavad Gita, to the peaceless person, to the person without peace, how is happiness possible? It isn't. I think probably that's true. For example, people whose natural tendencies is to withdraw from reality, people who don't want to face reality, people, well, schizophrenics, people who are unbalanced, they shouldn't meditate. They should rather serve. They should be active with their bodies. They should bring their bodies down to a level where they learn to relate to objective reality. I would say that people who are very hallucinatory, people who like to create their own inner world, then they aren't meditating. It's not that meditation is bad for them, it's that they aren't in a state yet where they can meditate at all. And they use the word meditation as an excuse to escape from reality. Now, when I'm talking of going to a higher reality, I've also said that that higher reality enables you to relate more to this level of reality. If, on the other hand, you can't even relate to this level, how can you expect to relate to a higher? You've got to be able to be practical. You've got to have common sense. And if you're a balanced person, if you're a person of common sense, if you're a person who isn't trying to run away from reality, to escape things, then I think you're in a safer position to take up meditation. Others, maybe what they should do is think of serving God through others more. Well, that depends upon the individual, but I would say, first of all, every day. You wash your teeth every day, you take a bath every day, you dress every day, you do so many things every day that just keep your body in good shape. Why not also take care of your mind and your soul? Why not think of it as mental and spiritual hygienics, if you like? But the important thing is that you recognize that you aren't just a body. You're a body, mind, and soul. And all of these things need to be taken care of. The best thing would be if you could meditate a little bit every morning and every evening. Well, meditation should be practiced for, I almost hesitate to say this because what I'd like to say is meditate as long as you enjoy it, but let's face it, the beginner may not enjoy it. Therefore, should that be his excuse not to meditate? Obviously not. But I would say meditate as long as you can do so without feeling sort of an explosion coming inside. And yet don't meditate so long that you go to sleep. Because if you sit too long, you begin to sort of nod like this. And so perhaps in the beginning, 15 minutes is good. 15 minutes in the morning, 15 minutes in the evening. If you're very restless, 5 minutes. I'll bargain with you. 5 minutes morning and evening if you like. But if you can make it, if you can keep leaving joy aside for the moment, as long as your mind can be positive, as long as your concentration can be positive, as long as you can be positively aware rather than passively aware, because meditation requires a positive awareness, then meditate half an hour if you like, morning and evening. If you can make it an hour, all the better. But in the beginning, I would say start with a little bit and meditate as long as you can do so with clarity, with clarity of attention, and then make it a little bit longer, you'll come to feel a great joy. And then at that point, I would say, meditate until that joy diminishes a little bit. Then get up. So that every time you come back to meditation, there's a sense of anticipation. Whereas if you meditate beyond that point, you may develop in your mind a certain resistance to it, so that you think, oh dear, it's time to meditate again. There should be, and will be naturally, if you do this right, a sense of keen looking forward to your time for meditation, your time with God. One should meditate if one wants to be a complete human being. Very few people are complete human beings. We say that I'm only human. My answer to that is, no, we are not yet human. Because as human beings, we have a potential to explore. And most people are content to explore that potential to the maximum to achieve a certain amount of success in business and maybe get a wife or a husband and find some way of paying for the children's education. People need to realize that they have a very great potential for happiness, joy, understanding, love. We need to explore that potential. And anybody who doesn't try to is what Jesus meant and was referring to when he said, let the dead bury their dead. Because people can exist, but are they living? Meditation can help you to live, to come alive on every level of your being. Well, it's good to meditate alone, but it's good to balance private meditation with group meditation. The power of other people meditating together. Thoughts are things, and working together you become influenced by their devotion and you become uplifted. That's why in church services people often feel more inspired than they do, let's say, just walking out in the countryside, even though the country in some ways may be more visually inspiring. And this may not be true for everybody. Some people really do feel more awe and inspiration in the country. But basically for meditation, where you're not looking around anyway, the influence of people's thoughts can be helpful. I would say balance the two, but have more time for your own meditation, because that's something you can control, whereas a group meditation is something you have to get a sense of unanimity with others before you can actually sit down together. Well, I tell you what, we'll go into that in the next class, but first of all, let's just have a little practice that we can do. I would like, with this series of classes, 8 classes, to have you think about and practice what I've given you for a week. If you can do it this way and aren't too impatient, meditation will make you more patient. But if you can do it, you'll be able, if you take each class for a week, you'll be able to go more deeply into it and practice it every day, and then be ready, more ready for the next step. So now for the next week, if you agree to follow my schedule, and of course you've got the video cassette, I don't, and so you're going to be able to control your own timing on this. But whatever time it takes before the next class, let me suggest now that you simply sit upright in your chair, sit away from the back of the chair, place your hands on the thighs at the junction of the abdomen to support your body. Close your eyes and visualize a light as if it were burning coolly, pleasantly in your heart. A calm, white light. Fill that light now with happiness, with joy. And expand that light from your heart out to your chest, your shoulders, up into your brain, your forehead, downward, into your legs, your feet, your hands, arms. Now feel as though you were sitting surrounded by that light. But that light wasn't just yours, you were a part of the larger reality, which is that light and joy. Now, mentally expand that light until it fills the room you're sitting in. Feel the whole room vibrating with that light. And if there are people in it, feel them blessed by your joy. Now expand that light and joy beyond the room, into the building you're in, into the neighborhood. Feel it touching and blessing with light and joy all the people around you, even if your eyes can't see them. Feel it blessing all creatures, animals, insects, and all things, rocks, earth, trees. Feel all things shimmering in that light. Expand that light outward, gradually outward, until it fills the neighborhood, the town or city in which you are living, or the countryside. Gradually expanding outward to fill the whole country. Feel all the people in your country blessed, healed by your light and joy. That greater light and joy of which your little body and ego are a part. But you are not this body and ego, you are that light, that joy. And in that joy, bless them with your love. Now go on beyond the boundaries of your little nation, filling the continent on which you live, and going beyond that continent to embrace all continents, all oceans, all the people in the world. See them as your brothers and sisters. Expand that light and joy and love beyond the boundaries of the earth. See this poor battled planet so full of hatred and anger and warfare and disease and suffering. See it reaching out sort of psychically, all the creatures in it, for that light that is you, that love and joy. How deeply God would love to touch all mankind, and does touch them, but they close their hearts. Try to be a channel also for that light, to open the hearts of all, that they may appreciate and be absorbed in that higher reality which they would see if they would only open their spiritual eyes. Expand that light outward until it embraces the moon, Venus, Mars, Mercury, Jupiter, the sun, Saturn, all the planets in our solar system. See them moving within your great light and love and joy. See that love as holding the planets in orbit, keeping them from flying out into space. The sun's love for them holds them close. And then expand outward beyond the solar system, gradually filling the galaxy, going beyond the galaxy to embrace all galaxies, the entire universe, so that you see all the stars in the universe like the little lights of a city seen from afar. And all of these are shining within the infinitude of your own being. Meditate on that infinite light and love and joy, which is God. And mentally say, I and thy light are one. I and thy love are one. I and thy joy are one. O infinite Father, infinite Mother, infinite light and consciousness, I am one with thee. Class number 2. I want to talk now about beginning meditation, and the first thing we need to think about is the proper position for meditation. I saw an advertisement for meditation once in which somebody was sitting in a lazy boy chair with his feet up and his head back. Well, this is the worst possible position because you want to have a very positive mental outlook. When you lean back, you tend to be passive. You don't have the same alert attitude that you have when you're sitting upright. So the first and most important thing is to sit upright. The second thing is to keep your body still. The third thing is to keep it relaxed. Now you may say, well, but how can I relax as well sitting up as I can if I'm lying down flat on my back? Well, you can't, of course, in one way. But the thing is, your supine position is when you've practiced for a long time to go to sleep. And in fact, you'll find that if you can keep your spine straight and you can get used to having the muscles to keep the back in that position, that it won't take long before the whole body can be relaxed. And that sense of uprightness is a part of your relaxation, because what you're doing is not only relaxing the body, but directing the energy upward. And keeping the spine straight like this enables you to have that upward kind of relaxation instead of merely a collapsing kind of relaxation. We'll go more into that. First of all, I want to show you a variety of positions in which you can sit. Now, this position is one that many people can assume very comfortably. Sitting cross-legged with the leg up on the other thigh in a sort of a half lotus position, as it's known. Another position would be full lotus, but I'm not going to take you into that one. What I'd rather take you into is one that would be perhaps more easy for you to practice, which is known as the perfect pose, or Siddhasana. For many of you, these positions may be difficult, in which case a simple tailor position is good. You can just cross your legs like that. The only thing is that in this position, after a while, the pressure of the foot against the outer part of the lower part of the leg will tend to make your legs go to sleep. And so also it tends to throw you backward more and to create a little bit more tension in the back. So these other positions are actually better. You can also simply put one foot in front of the other and relax them without actually putting them in the more formal position that I mentioned. If you're interested in getting a meditation seat, you can write to our publisher and get them. To sit on one of these is also an easier way of getting your body to be completely relaxed and yet in a firm position like this. There's another thing that the publishers make, which is known as a meditation seat, meditation bench, and you can sit in it this way. When you sit, and as long as you've got me in this position, let me show you how to hold the body. The chest should be up. The back should be straight. You might almost think of your body as a bow, where the front of the body is the wood of the bow, and the spine is like the string that strings the bow. When the bow is unstrung, then it goes like this. As soon as you string the bow, you've got this arch here, and you can feel that spine. In fact, you're going to learn in these lessons how important it is to feel the spine and to feel the energy actually moving in the spine. Now, I'd like to show you another position which will be easier for you probably, and one that Westerners, particularly with these Western knees that we're born with, might find easier for a long period of time, and that is simply sitting in a chair. I'll show you how. The position that most people in the West find the most comfortable is sitting in a chair. Make sure it's an armless chair, because then you can have your elbows out more easily. Place your hands palms upward on the thighs at the junction of the abdomen. Bring your shoulder blades a little bit together, not tightly together, but just enough to sort of corrugate your back so that it will be easier to keep it upright. And keep your feet flat on the floor, chin parallel to the ground, your chest up, as I said earlier, and just be in this position. It's a very easy one to assume. Now, there are several things that would help you. Each one of them is not terribly important, but altogether they actually add up to making it a lot easier. One is if you would have a woolen blanket and run it down over the back of your chair, over the seat of your chair, and under your feet. The yogis in ancient times discovered that an animal fur of any kind has an insulating effect against certain subtle currents in the earth that tend to pull the consciousness, the energy downward. And what you're going to be trying to do in meditation is lifting it upward toward the heaven within. In fact, the ancient traditions used deerskin or something like that, but a woolen blanket is a perfectly good Western and modern day adjustment to that old way of doing it. If you want to be really super careful and exact about these things, then you can even cover the wool with a silk cloth, which actually helps to insulate even more. Another thing that's helpful is to face east as you meditate. North is okay, any direction is acceptable, but you will find that there are certain currents from the east and in a different way from the north that help to calm your mind, to focus your mind and direct it at the point between the eyebrows, which is what we'll be doing later on. It's the position most suited for achieving enlightenment. In fact, you can meditate facing south, west, any way you want to, sitting in any direction you want to, but these are little helps, and as each one is added to the other, the whole becomes a much greater benefit to you and advantage. One thing that you will find extremely helpful is to have a place that you set aside and don't ever do anything there but meditate. I don't know if you know much about vibrations, but every thought that you have, in fact, science has discovered that the whole universe is made of vibrations. Vibrations of matter, vibrations of feeling, vibrations of consciousness. Every time you think, there's a vibration that goes out from you. And it permeates to some extent the atmosphere of the house or the ambience where you go. If you go into places where people have meditated, prayed very deeply, or if you go to some place where some great saint has lived and try to meditate there, if you're sensitive, you'll feel a difference. You can go into a room that you've been meditating in for some months, let's say, and immediately you'll begin to feel more like meditating. When you go into the dining room, into the kitchen, the vibrations there are more of food. When you go into the bedroom, the vibrations you've created there are more of sleep. So if you have either a separate room or a fenced off area, let's put a screen, let's say, around the area where you meditate. You can put that in a corner of your bedroom. But when you go there, don't ever do anything there but meditate. You'll find that without too much of a delay, it may take a few months, but you'll begin to feel, just as you go in there, this sense of upliftment. Another thing that will help you in that same respect, more in a time sense now than in a space sense, is to meditate at the same time every day. By meditating at the same time, I remember, for example, I lived in India for some years and I had errands to run in Calcutta for a certain period of time, and when I was going into the city, I couldn't have a regular time for eating. As a result, it wasn't very long before I lost my appetite. If you eat at the same time every day, then when that time comes, you feel hungry. And so the same thing is true for any human activity. If you're used to doing it a certain time, then that's when you feel like doing that. Sleep, for example, getting up at a certain time, whatever it might be. So if you meditate at the same time every day, then you will find that when that time comes, it's a lot easier for that period of time to put all extraneous thoughts aside. Otherwise, you might think, well, but what am I doing here? I've got all these other things to do, and you might find your mind drawn into restlessness. So try finding a time that is good for you and then meditate at that time every day. Other rules would be to meditate when you wake up in the morning. The first thing, before you get involved in worldly activities, busyness and outward relationships and so on. And the last thing before you go to bed at night. Not only are those times important because they're sort of the beginning and the end of the day, but also because the thoughts that you take into your subconscious change your habits. The best way to change a habit is to take an affirmation at night and take it into the sleep world. When you meditate before you go to bed and take that peace into your subconscious, it will help you to become a more peaceful person as a natural thing. If there's some habit you want to change, then affirm that change before you go to sleep. Take that affirmation into the sleep world, but make it a positive one. Don't say, I am not this, but rather, this is what I will be. I had an interesting experience like that many years ago. I wanted to give up smoking. I was 21 years old, and I decided that smoking just wasn't where it was at. And so I tried, but every time I drank a cup of coffee or enjoyed the nice full feeling after a meal, that desire for a cigarette came back because I had been used to enjoying the cigarette, particularly at those times. And so for a year, I went on like that, and it was like Mark Twain, who used to say smoking is the easiest thing in the world to give up. I've done it 100 times, 1,000 times, I think he said. Anyway, I kept feeling, however, instead of, oh, I failed, I kept thinking, well, I haven't yet succeeded. But one night, after about a year of this, I remember just suddenly I absolutely had decided I would not. And I told a friend of mine, I'm giving up smoking, and he sort of laughed and said, oh yeah, we've heard that one before. But I really had made up my mind to that, and I carried that thought into sleep when I went to bed. I was already in bed, carried it into sleep as I went to sleep. And the next morning I woke up without any desire. I remember that for 2 weeks I carried a half-empty packet of cigarettes in my pocket and gave them around to my friends, but I never once from that moment to this, some 42 years later, had the slightest desire for a cigarette. You'll find also, if you do this when you wake up, that the first thing you do, you think of God. The first thing you do, you think of meditation. The first thing you do is offer yourself up to a high thought. Or you can also walk in place and wake yourself up. I am awake and ready, or I'm positive, energetic, enthusiastic. And in these ways, help to invigorate your mind before you actually sit to meditate. But before you wash your face and brush your teeth and all those things, think about these inner things, these higher things. Think of God. Think of what your real purpose in this day will be. Well, now, the best times to meditate then are at the same time every day, yes, but the best times would be when you wake up and before you go to bed. There are other points to consider that are helpful too. One is to realize something that the yogis, or I should say go along with it, I can't expect you to realize it quickly, but this is something the yogis discovered many, many centuries ago, which was that at certain times of the day there are changes in the electrical currents of the earth and the atmosphere. You can actually feel this yourself to some extent. For example, at sundown. Do you notice at sundown how suddenly the energy changes? There's a stillness that comes over the air, comes over the whole countryside. You will find that if you can meditate at or close to dawn, sunset, noon, and midnight, I'm showing the positions of the sun, then at those times of change, at those times of pause, you will be able to penetrate more deeply into the inner silence. It's interesting, the Zen Buddhists have that classical question, if two hands clapping make this kind of sound, what is the sound of one hand clapping? The answer to that question, of course, is that there is no answer, but in the very realization that there's no answer, the mind is still. And in that stillness, suddenly, you can meditate. So if you can in some way catch objective nature or your own inner nature at that point where you're still, then you'll be able to meditate more deeply. Yogananda often would use this when disciplining his disciples. He would say something that was totally ununderstandable. And at that moment of stillness, when the mind was sort of stunned into silence, then he said what he really wanted to say. But until then, he encountered so much resistance of restless thoughts that he wasn't able to get through. So if you can make your mind just suddenly still for a moment, or if you can catch some moment in time, some moment in nature, some moment in your affairs when you can be still, that's a good time also to meditate. And in fact, it would be good to meditate for a few minutes, just any time you have a little bit of stillness. It would help you also to have an altar. An altar is a focal point of your heart's energy as well as of your concentration. An altar can be without images or with images. If there is any image of a sacred type that inspires you, you can put that on the altar. Photographs of great saints and masters, put that on the altar. A lot of people don't like the idea of having anything between them and God. Well, the answer to that is, quite frankly, that they have a heck of a lot between themselves and God in their own minds. Their restless thoughts, their desires, their attachments, their preoccupations, their world of all these involvements and so on, and to focalize on certain beings whose consciousness was pure, whose consciousness was clear. It helps to be in that kind of influence. It helps to be with people who are spiritual and whose minds are calm, as opposed to being with restless people who just catch you up in their vortex and draw you away from your own center. So in this way, if you can have pictures of saints on the altar, if they inspire you, it's a good thing. If you don't, if you just want a symbol, or if to you the most beautiful thing might be a picture of the galaxy, anything that uplifts your heart's energy, focalizes your mind, is good. Another thing that you'll find helpful is maybe candles on the altar. There's something about candlelight that is inspiring, that's beautiful. Light is a good thing. Theoretically, you could meditate in darkness, but the thing is that in darkness there tends to be a certain lowering of awareness. When there's light, there's more awakeness. There's more to it than that I don't want to go into at length. But the mind is more protected when there is light. In darkness is a time when sometimes you're open on a lower level, and that may not be so good. A blue light is also a very good thing to meditate in. And if you want to have in your meditation room a blue light above you, that can be very calming. Now then, with these few introductory remarks, let us just sit upright. You sit in one of the positions I've shown you, whether on the floor, on a woolen blanket, or in a chair, the way I've said. Place your palms, your hands, palms upward on the thighs at the junction of the abdomen. Bring your shoulders back, your chin parallel to the ground, just like I'm doing right now. And close your eyes. And inhale, counting mentally to 12. Hold 12, exhale 12. All right, start. Inhale. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. That speed. Hold. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. Exhale. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. Immediately inhale slowly. We're going to do this 6 times. Again, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 1, 2, 3, and so on. Exhale. Inhale. Hold. Exhale. Again. Hold. Breathe only through the nostrils. Exhale. And once more. Hold. Exhale. Now inhale, tense the whole body, throw the breath out and relax. Inhale, tense, exhale and relax. Once more. Tense, and relax. Now lift your eyes upward. You keep them closed, but look upward and focus your gaze and attention at the point between the eyebrows. I don't mean cross your eyes like that, but just at a point, about arm's length, let's say, above your forehead. Focus your eyes, your attention at the point between the eyebrows. This is the seat of concentration in the body. We'll go into it again in another class. But focus there and visualize a halo of golden light. And within that halo of golden light, visualize a blue field. And in the center of that blue field, see a star, 5-pointed star. In fact, this is a vision that will come to you naturally and spontaneously in meditation, whether you visualize it or not. It's a description of what is called the spiritual eye. And when the mind is very calm, this spiritual eye is suddenly visible. Even people who have never meditated before know nothing about these practices. Many have seen this light and have exclaimed with wonder to me when I've mentioned it to them, described it to them. Concentrate now on that star and feel your energy penetrating that star. Calm your body, keep it relaxed. Feel the energy penetrating that star and going into a kingdom of infinite light, brilliant white light. Feel yourself completely freed of all cares, all worries, all responsibilities, all memories and plans for the future. You are living in the eternal now, in that infinite white light, surrounded by joy, surrounded by peace. Enjoy it as long as you can. And then when you come out of that state, keep your mind always a little bit looking back toward it and feel that underlying all the restlessness of your daily activities, there's always that realm of peace and light and joy. Peace, peace. Amen. In the temple of silence, in the temple of peace, in the temple of silence, in the temple of peace, I will meet thee, I will touch thee, I will love thee, and coax thee to my altar of peace, and coax thee to my altar of peace. Class number 3, and we're going to be talking about the importance of attitude in meditation. Many people think that meditation is just sort of a mechanical practice. In fact, if you don't have the right attitude, you'll never be able to go very far. For example, it's quite obvious, surely, that if you were to come to meditation in a sort of a resistant frame of mind, even a hostile frame of mind, you'd not get very far. Do you remember what Jesus said, that if when you go to the temple, you have something against your brother, go back and smooth things out with your brother before you go to the temple? What he meant in that passage is much more broad than just some little misunderstanding you might have with your brother. What he meant was that you should go to the temple with that kind of attitude that induces inner calmness. And the temple we're talking about is the temple of your own body, the temple of peace. So there are certain basic attitudes that you need to develop as a part of your normal outlook on life if you really want to meditate deeply. Otherwise, it's going to be taking one step forward and one step back and really not getting anywhere. For example, meditation is a means of uniting yourself with life. Therefore, you should feel that unity. Meditation is a means of learning to be completely honest with yourself, to go beyond your delusions. Therefore, you should be completely truthful. Meditation is a means of withdrawing your identity from things, outward things. Therefore, you shouldn't be covetous. Meditation is a means of learning to be self-controlled, self-contained, and not feeling that your energy has to run out toward sensory delights. Therefore, non-sensuality. Meditation is also a means of raising yourself above the body and the personality and all the inner desires and attachments and interests that you have. And so we come to some of the basic teachings on the path of yoga and of meditation, which were outlined by one of the great sages of ancient times in India. His name was Patanjali, and he wrote the only book that is really recognized universally as a scripture on yoga. Yoga means union. Union with, of your lower self with your higher self. Union with life. Integration of your personality so that you don't work at odds with yourself. Union in the sense of no longer having all sorts of desires that take you out, but you're complete in yourself. Union of the little self with the infinite self. Union of the aspiring devotee with his Lord. All these could be comprised in the simple word yoga or union. So many people think yoga means doing a lot of physical postures, and in fact those are not classically really a part of yoga, although they've been sort of admitted as helpful in making the body harmonious so that you can forget the body and meditate more deeply. But real yoga is what is known as Raja Yoga. And other pathways that are also called yoga, like the yoga of devotion, the yoga of intellect, the yoga of action, all these things are in a sense bypaths because they depend upon different aspects of human personality, human nature. And you may be more active by nature, more contemplative by nature, more emotional and feeling by nature. But all of these things should lead you toward that state of inner calmness. And anybody who follows a path of union through these qualities will find that he achieves that state of calmness, which is known as meditation. Meditation is the path of Raja Yoga. Raja, or royal yoga, is that highway on which these bypaths of human attributes meet in that soul stillness that is beyond human attributes. You see, it's not a matter of sectarian difference and my way is better than yours or anything like that. All of these ways meet, and in fact, Raja Yoga embraces learning to develop your feeling, learning to develop clarity of intellect and perception, learning to serve. All of these things are a part of your total self-development. But what we're talking about here now is the need for getting yourself completely calm, internalized, and having that kind of attitude that will make it possible for you to recognize that oneness on all levels, be it inwardly by an integrated personality, inwardly and physically by a harmonious body that's really working together, all the parts working in harmony with one another, or unity in the sense of love for all creatures as a part of your own self, unity in the sense of embracing that oneness. All of these aspects of the meaning of yoga are embraced, first of all, in attitude. In other words, one of the things that you seek to achieve, as I said, is a sense of love in unity. Well, then you can't come to meditation with an attitude that is inimical to love. You have to have a loving heart. Well, one of the first rules Patanjali gave was harmlessness, not wishing ill to anything. You might say, well, why didn't he say love everybody? But the thing is, when we love in a human way, then we love some people and don't love others. We love them because they have certain qualities. We don't love others because they lack those qualities. We hate others perhaps because they are opposed to those qualities. Where if we get rid of the natural tendency of the human ego to wish harm to others in its effort to defend itself or promote its own self-aggrandizement, then automatically there comes that kind of all-embracing attitude, which is love. So, harmlessness. He said the same thing for truth, that it's a negative quality in the sense that he taught non-lying, non-desire to tell lies. And that way, automatically, you want the truth. Truth is that which remains when you weed out every wish to hide yourself from the truth, to delude yourself, to pretend that something is other than you are, that you are different from what you are, and so on. When you get rid of that wish to kid yourself, then automatically you tune in on what really is, so that becomes truthfulness. Another quality that he talked about was not coveting anything that isn't yours. Just be content with what you have. Know that what is yours by right will come to you in its own time, in its own way. You can work for it, but don't work with desire. Because when you're working with desire, you're not living here and now, you're living in the future, you're living out there in space where that car might be found, or that new fur coat, or that new house, or whatever it might be. The more you can learn to live complete in yourself, the better off you'll be. Another thing that he said as a basic attitude is to be self-controlled, self-contained in a different way. That is to say, non-sensual, self-controlled, concentrated in yourself, recognizing that your real power comes from within and not from outside yourself. The more you can live in that way, not spilling your energy out in sensory and sensual ways, the more you can live in your own inner power, the more you will see that you have power over everything that you try to accomplish. Whereas if you scatter your forces, too much talk is a way of not being self-controlled. Too much action is a way of losing your self-control, losing your cool, you might say. Too much sensual indulgence on a sexual level also is not good, because it spills your forces. you scatter them. Anything that takes your mind too much outside. Now, does this mean you shouldn't talk? You shouldn't do anything? No, of course not. But it means that you should be moderate. You should be self-controlled in the sense of being concentrated on what you do, but not being bound by anything. And if ever you find something that binds you, that conditions your happiness, then give that up for a while until you feel that you don't need it. Another quality that he talked about is acceptance. To learn to accept. I'm sorry, I put that wrong. Acceptance is a quality, but what he was talking about is non-acceptance. I'm contradicting myself, but what he meant in the non-acceptance was not accepting even that which is yours. So you shouldn't covet that which isn't yours, but don't accept as yours even that which apparently is yours. In other words, don't identify yourself with your body. Don't identify yourself with your personality. Be, as it were, watching. Always have a part of your mind that's sort of watching everything and saying, that isn't what I am. That isn't my reality. I'm watching it. Be again in this world, live in this world as if you were a guest in this world. That you're here for a time, but you know that what you have and what you do and the people you are surrounded by aren't yours in eternity. So that a part of your mind is always living in eternity. And another thing is always, therefore, to sort of withdraw yourself from attachments. All of these things are a part of the attitude. Now, I talked of acceptance, and that is, too, a very basic part. It could be tied into truthfulness, because when you accept things as they are, and not wish that they be anything other than what they are, then you can be calm. And why do people get upset? Largely because they would like things to be different from what they are. They get angry, they get cross, they get depressed, they get falsely elated, all because they have desires that are either being disappointed or fulfilled. But in no case are they the reality. I have often thought of the quiz shows on television and how excited people get, and you see them jumping up and down. But that great excitement that they feel because they got a new dishwasher, that wears off in time. The dishwasher becomes old stuff. Maybe it's broken down anyway. Maybe there's something wrong with it, who knows. But the fact is that if they allow themselves to condition their happiness by these things instead of accepting them, it's good to have a dishwasher if you need one. But don't let your happiness depend upon such things, because then you'll find that you'll never get it all right. Whereas if you can be strong in yourself, you will find that then you can enjoy everything in this world and without the fear of losing it. This is important, because even in the enjoyment of things, the worldly person has very little joy because he's always afraid of losing it. Always thinking, when will it break down? Always thinking, when will it get stolen from me? And so on. So then there's a positive side to all these qualities. One is cleanliness. Now, physical cleanliness is good for meditation. If you cleanse yourself, if you take a shower before you meditate, you will find that it's easier to raise your consciousness. Of course, an unclean body, if you've been working in the fields or wherever, then that makes you body conscious, and it tends to pull the mind down. But there's something more to it too. When you go out into, well, a very obvious example is a smoky environment. You go to a party, everybody's smoking, you come home, and that smell of smoke clings to your hair, clings to your clothes, clings to your body, and it'll be there. Well, not only that, but something of the world clings to your clothes and to your body when you come back to your meditation room, to really free yourself from all those vibrations, all those impulses of other people's thoughts and desires. To free yourself of all of that, it would help to take a bath before you meditate. Cleanse yourself. In that cleanliness, you will find that it's much easier to raise your consciousness and meditate deeply. But cleanliness is on a much more than physical level. To have pure thoughts, clean thoughts. What is purity? Jesus said, "Blessed are the pure in heart, for they shall see God." purity of heart. Well, you could look at it this way. Earth, if it's out in the garden where it belongs, it's just earth, and good, clean earth. We talk of it as that, don't we? But if you bring it into the kitchen, aren't you likely to be scolded by your wife if you're a boy or a man? Or aren't you going to feel in any case that you've brought dirt into the house? What was clean and good outside becomes dirt when it doesn't belong there. And so when we have desires that don't pertain to our true nature, then they're not clean. And there are some desires that are cleaner and some desires that are less clean than others, strictly in relation to whether those desires help us to rise or pull us down from that. A desire for things particularly isn't the important thing, but if you, for example, desire money in order to help other people, then that can be an uplifting, an expansive kind of desire. But if you desire money just to be rich and be a miser, then it can be a limiting, a self-limiting desire. So it's not so much the thing as the direction of your energies and desires. That is clean and pure, which helps to lift your mind up into calmness, to love beautiful scenery without being attached to it and thinking, I won't be happy until I can get back to the country. To love beautiful music, but to be able to enjoy silence too. Nevertheless, basically, these are good desires. They can uplift you. Whereas to love the kind of music that makes you tense and nervous and lower your consciousness, this, like rock music, has been proved scientifically to have a lowering effect on the energy in the body and the mind, to agitate the nervous system. It's bad for you, in fact. Whereas classical music, some of it is very uplifting, spiritual and devotional music, chanting, as I was doing at the beginning of this class. All of this is very good. So cleanliness means to have those kinds of thoughts and feelings that make you feel clean, that make you feel pure, that make you feel uplifted. And the more you can live in that kind of environment, and the more you can surround yourself with people who live and think that way, the more you will find that this teaching of Patanjali's will be a reality for you and will change your whole consciousness. Contentment. It's been described as the greatest of all virtues, because when you're content, then it's easy to think in terms of kindness, it's easy to think in terms of forgiveness, it's easy not to be angry, it's easy to have all noble and uplifting qualities and thoughts. Whereas if you're malcontent, then you will find that nothing pleases you. And in that lack of pleasure, lack of happiness, then you get angry, you get frustrated, you get depressed, you get discouraged. So contentment. Many people imagine that they'll only become contented when everything goes right for them, when their desires are fulfilled, when those nasty neighbors move away and nicer ones come in, when they finally get that raise at the office, etc., etc., etc. No, contentment is something that you have to practice as an actual quality. So that whatever comes, say, I accept it. And you will find, you might as well anyway. I remember some person a few decades ago grandiosely said, I accept the universe. And somebody said, well, by God, you'd better. In fact, however, very few people accept a great deal in life, what to speak of the universe. The universe can take care of itself, but they can't accept their daily surroundings. They can't accept the people they're with. They don't like their work. They don't like their homes. They don't like their wife or husband. They don't like their neighbors. There's so many things that can displease you if you get a mindset to be displeased. And if you ever think to get it together so that you can finally be happy, you'll be waiting a long time, probably past the end of this life and into who knows whether many incarnations. But if you practice contentment as a deliberate quality, just say from today on, I don't care what goes on, I am going to be contented in myself, then you will find that also in your meditation you can go more deeply. Do you think that you can find joy in meditation as one of the attributes of God? If you sit there and think, when am I going to find joy like this and all, just sure that you'll never find it, and wanting God to prove it to Him, prove it to you that He can make you joyful. He won't. You've got to have the attitude of deep meditation before you can attain deep meditation. You have to have an attitude of calmness. You have to have an attitude of forgiveness, an attitude of love, an attitude of contentment. So, studying yourself. Swadhyaya is the word in Sanskrit. Self-study is the literal meaning of it, and many people think, oh, it means studying the scriptures, but swa means the self. And what it's really talking about is to understand yourself. Now, you know, from a mental level, it's very difficult to understand yourself. It's very difficult even to see yourself as you are. But if you can see yourself from a higher level, from that calmness you can easily judge whether this quality is leading toward that calmness or away from it. So that qualities which to the normal rational mind may seem perfectly good, you suddenly realize aren't good. They may be good in the sense that they can help you to make a killing in the stock market, but they may not be those things which are inducive to a higher state of awareness. So self-study is possible really only in deeper meditation, when you can sort of look down. But at that point, look at yourself, analyze yourself, if you will, see where you're going wrong. You'll be able quickly to see what things you need to change, what things you need to adjust, what things you need to develop, new qualities you need to acquire. And then to also read the scriptures, yes, of course, but also have devotion to the Supreme Lord. I forgot one of the qualities, which is austerity. Austerity, not in the sense, see, there's some of these words you can't really translate well, because austerity has a connotation of grimness. And I'm not talking of grimness, I'm talking rather of don't spill your energy is the first one, non-sensuality. But the other is contain that energy. Don't only not send it outward, but take it back and direct it upward toward your goal. Jesus said not only that we should love the Lord our God with all our heart, mind, and soul, but he added a fourth quality. He said strength. And some people think strength means your work and so on. But what somebody who meditates understands immediately what that means is that the strength of your body is your energy. And if you can not spill that energy outward, but bring it back and redirect it upward, then you are practicing real austerity, which is to say simply the redirection of misspent energy in a wholesome and constructive direction. In meditation, that means toward God. Then the final one is devotion to the Supreme Lord. Devotion is a very important quality. Some people don't understand it. They think that devotion means some sort of mawkish sentiment. No, devotion really means being completely focused on something that you very deeply want. When you want it with all your heart. Something that you, if you, let's put it this way. You live next door to a restaurant. You know it's a very famous restaurant. You know what menus it has. You know that people come from far and near to eat in that restaurant. But if you aren't hungry, you won't go there, even if it's close. But once you're hungry, and if you're really hungry, you'll go. You'll even go to a restaurant that offers a lot less because you want it with your body. The same thing is true with your wants of the heart. When you really want to meditate, then you'll meditate. There was somebody who, a young boy, a young man, I should say, came to a saint once and asked him to teach him to meditate. And the saint saw that he wasn't ready yet because he hadn't that desire yet. And so he said, well, come with me. He knew that argument wouldn't do it. He said, come with me. They went down to a river. And he took this young man, and before he knew what was happening, he held the man's head underwater, pushed it down underwater, and held it there until the man started kicking and writhing in agony. And then he let him come up. And the man spluttered like this in his desire for air. Then the saint said to him, what did you want most when I had your head held underwater? Air, air. He said, when you want God like that, come back to me. Then you'll be ready to learn. Well, I'm not really recommending such a drastic thing to you, because even without very much desire for meditation, but enough faith to practice it, you'll reach the point where it gives you so much delight, so much sense of fulfillment that you want it more and more and more. So at whatever point you are right now, if you meditate, as we saw earlier in the first class when I was talking with Danny, that it's for everybody. And most people don't have devotion, but the thing is that that devotion does grow. You, however, have to help it to grow consciously. It's a great mistake that people make to think that by the intellect we can really understand. An intellectual understanding is like armchair philosophy. An intellectual understanding is like knowing that menu, but not having the hunger to eat. I've met a lot of intellectuals. In fact, I remember one discussion I had with some students at Caltech in Pasadena on these spiritual principles and ideals. And they came up with all sorts of arguments against God, against the spiritual path, against higher realities and so on. And I had the blessing, perhaps, to be able to answer them well. What did it do for them? I didn't ever see any one of them. Not one of them later came and said, well, how can I learn to meditate? They probably went home and licked their wounds and thought of other arguments that they could come back with. See, the intellect is never going to be satisfied. And what you want for satisfaction is to fill your heart. So have devotion to the Supreme Lord. Why the Supreme Lord? Why not your own self? God is your own self, but you are not that any more than the wave can say it's the ocean. The ocean has become all of the waves. So when you meditate, offer your heart's feeling up to the Lord. And we'll talk a bit in the next class about what we mean when we say the Lord, what we mean when we say God. And I'll go into that at greater length. But for now, let's chant together. Yogananda used to say that chanting is half the battle. And it would be good, in fact, if you could learn some of these chants and you could write to us and find out, get a book from us and learn them that way, or get some of our recordings. But meanwhile, sing this chant with me. Door of my heart, open wide I keep for thee. Door of my heart, open wide I keep for thee. Door of my heart, open wide I keep for thee. Wilt thou come, just for once come to me? Wilt thou come, just for once come to me? Will my days fly away without seeing thee, my Lord? Will my days fly away without seeing thee, my Lord? Night and day, I look for thee, night and day. Night and day, I look for thee, night and day. Door of my heart, open wide I keep for thee. Door of my heart, open wide I keep for thee. Wilt thou come, just for once come to me? Wilt thou come, just for once come to me? Will my days fly away without seeing thee, my Lord? Will my days fly away without seeing thee, my Lord? Night and day, I look for thee, night and day. Night and day, I look for thee, night and day. Door of my heart, open wide I keep for thee. Door of my heart, open wide I keep for thee. Wilt thou come, just for once come to me. Wilt thou come, just for once come to me. Will my days fly away without seeing thee, my Lord? Will my days fly away without seeing thee, my Lord? Night and day, I look for thee, night and day. Night and day, I look for thee, night and day. Night and day, I look for thee, night and day. Night and day, I look for thee, night and day. Now close your eyes still and meditate deeply as I've taught you in the previous classes. Lord, I am thine, I am thine, I am thine. Lord, I am thine, I am thine. Lord, I am thine, I am thine, I am thine. Lord, I am thine, I am thine. Be thou mine, oh, be thou mine. Be thou mine, oh, be thou mine. I am thine, I am thine. Be thou mine, oh, be thou mine. Be thou mine, oh, be thou mine. I am thine, I am thine. Lord, I am thine, I am thine, I am thine. Lord, I am thine, I am thine. Lord, I am thine, I am thine, I am thine. Lord, I am thine, I am thine. This is class number 4. At the end of the last class, I said that I would talk about what do I mean when I say Lord? What do we mean when we say God? God is an infinite consciousness. But we don't need to define him in such a way as to be absolutely accurate. What we need to do is define him in such a way that draws us to him. We can define him in abstract words like cosmic ground of being. You hear expressions like this, but does it really make you say, I've got to know that person? Does it really make you say, I've got to meditate and achieve that state? Actually, as human beings, we feel that the infinity of love is more real to us when we find it expressed as a mother, as a beloved, as a father, as a friend. This human heart can understand best what it perceives in human ways. And so, after all, God, even if we defined him perfectly, that wouldn't impress him particularly. First of all, no definition can be perfect because it's always going to be limited where he's limitless. But the thing is, as far as wisdom is concerned, he's got it all. What he doesn't have is our love. And so, when we think of God, we should think of him in some way that makes us want to know him, that makes us love him. To Jesus, the Father aspect of God was the most attractive. And that reality is a part of the infinite structure. God is your human Father. God therefore has fatherly attributes. And you can love him as your Father and know him that way. You can love him also, however, as your mother. And it's a mistake to think that God really has a human form. God, who produced all these hundreds of billions of stars, 100 billion galaxies, the astronomers have estimated, how could he have a form like yours and mine? It's certainly an infinite consciousness, but infinite consciousness seems so dry by itself. Infinite love, infinite joy, these are certainly understandable, more understandable in human terms, but infinite is something that we also need something near and dear. In the Bhagavad Gita, which is the best known scripture in India, the best loved scripture, Arjuna is given by Krishna the vision of himself in his divine self, because Krishna was not only human but also God incarnate. And after having seen Krishna in this infinite form, in other words, seen God, Arjuna later in the next chapter said, "Lord, my heart longs to see you in your human form." This is natural for the human being. Even knowing that God is infinite, the great saints want to worship him as their divine mother. There was a saint in India who used to pray to God as his divine mother, but in one of his songs he said, even though he was a devotee of the divine mother, he said, "Thousands of scriptures declare that my mother has no form." And so it's a good thing to think of God with form, if you like, but then expand that consciousness into that motherly infinite that is compassionate, that loves. In some way, the motherly aspect of God, it's easier to love because the Father tends to be more rational, more just, and sometimes it isn't justice we want, it's mercy, isn't it? And so to love God, who is, in the mother aspect, who is nearer to our hearts, is sometimes easier. You can love him as your friend, as your beloved, as any form that you hold particularly dear. But remember that behind that form, so that you don't become a fanatic and think this is what God is, remember behind that form is the infinite consciousness out of which this whole universe was born. So be led by that form, don't be bound by it. Be led into a broader and broader understanding of the infinite love and the infinite joy. There's another thing to think about when you want to define what that infinite consciousness is. And that is a definition that was given by one of the great sages of ancient times, Swami Shankaracharya. He called God Sat Chidanandam, which Yogananda translated in modern terminology as ever-existing, ever-conscious, ever-new bliss. We all want bliss. This is something natural to us. We don't know that it's bliss we want, but we want joy. Or if we don't want joy, we want happiness. Or if we aren't yet aware enough or sensitive enough, refined enough spiritually to be aware that we want happiness, if our minds are so dark and so filled with attachment and desire that all we can think about is the senses and the body, then what we may really only want is to escape pain, and we consider happiness that state of consciousness where we suffer a little bit less perhaps. But in all human beings there's this wish to rise out of pain and suffering into greater and greater happiness. Now, why do we have this instinctive desire? Because we've all come from that, because that's the only reality, that we have been dreamed by that great consciousness of God into our present existence. And this whole universe is a dream. You know, even scientists have described this universe as looking suspiciously like maybe, I think it was Sir James Jeans who said that it looked like a dream in the mind of the Creator. It is a dream. That great consciousness has produced everything. And we, being a part of that, we naturally want what is our birthright. We have come from God. Jesus said, "No man can ascend to heaven save him who came down from heaven." And was he saying, therefore, only he can go back to heaven and we're just sort of lost? He was really saying that we have come from that, and that's why we can go back. That's where we belong. That's our birthright. We've lost it long ago. You know, Patanjali in his yoga scripture said that the state of divine awakening, he defined it as smriti, or memory. In meditation you go deep into that calmness and suddenly you remember, but of course, that's what I am. It's my nature to love. It's my nature to feel joy. It's my nature to be calm, to be free from all these worries. That's my reality. And so we have this instinctive longing, which on deeper than conscious levels we remember, even though consciously we don't know. That's why Jesus talked of the prodigal son. Our home is in God. We wander out through the world of the senses, but then when that world begins to cheat us and we enter a time of famine because we lose all our happiness, then we begin to remember and we say, oh, but when I lived in my Father's house I was well, and let me go back there. And so the Father recognizes us and gives us a great feast and takes us home again. Even if we sinned, He doesn't count how many sins you've committed. What He counts is, how deeply do you love Him? How deeply do you want to find Him again? So that's another definition of God, that He is the joy that you're looking for. He is that freedom in joy that your heart really craves. Now, how do we attain that? Well, there are certain things that we need to remember. You know, many people think that meditation is just a matter of closing your eyes and going into some sort of a abstract state, they don't know what. Actually, if you want to learn to play the piano well, you need to learn finger exercises, don't you? Otherwise you'll never get control over these fingers well enough to play the way your mind tells you you should play. If you want to climb a mountain, then you need to learn the techniques that enable you to keep climbing without the danger of falling or minimizing that danger. And in anything, if you want to be an accountant, there are certain techniques that you need to learn that will make it much easier for you to add up those figures. In anything that you do in life, techniques are a part of it. Then why do you think that all you need to do to pray deeply or meditate deeply is just close your eyes and hope for the best? In fact, techniques are an important thing. It isn't that they take the place of meditation, it isn't that they take the place of devotion, but they are adjuncts to it. They are what help to free your mind in order that you be able to enter more deeply into that peace. Some people say, well, God will give me His grace and then I'll get there. Well, grace is for everybody. Do you think that God gives His grace to some and not to others because He likes people's blue eyes and doesn't like brown eyes or something? God's grace is there all the time. You might describe it as being like the sunlight on a building. Now, if you keep your windows drawn shut, your curtains drawn shut, then that sunlight won't come into the room. But is that the sun's fault or is it yours? You're in a lighted room and you close your eyes and you walk around and you keep barking your shins on the furniture and falling over things, and you say, why doesn't somebody turn on the light? Well, the light is on. You've got to open your eyes. You see, we have to do our part. We can't let God do it all. On the other hand, if we have this egotistical thought that I can do it all, then we don't open ourselves to that reality which would flood us with grace. The two are absolutely essential, but techniques are that which help you to open your eyes, to open yourself to that inflow of grace, to make you aware of subtle realities without which you won't grow. But if you don't know the nuts and bolts, you might say, of meditation, then you won't learn. So techniques are important, and in the next series of classes we're going to go into techniques at much greater length. But the first thing that I want to talk about, and we can call this technique too, is that if you're going to direct your energy toward God, you've got to withdraw it from involvement in those things that are not of God, the world. And well, here's a good example. If you eat a very big meal and you're just stuffed and bloated, and then somebody comes and asks you to solve some difficult problem, whether in work or in his life, personal life, or whatever it might be, the chances are you're going to say, oh, wait until I've digested this meal. Why? Because your energy has been brought down from the mind to keep the stomach busy digesting that food. Once your stomach is empty, the energy can rise again to the brain and you can think more clearly and talk more deeply and intelligently and so on. Well, the thing is that we've got to be able to withdraw the energy, first of all, from the body. It would help you. I talked last time about the importance of right attitude as a means of bringing yourself, sort of integrating yourself and make yourself complete within yourself. Whole, integrated, directed. Well, now let's do it more specifically. When you sit to meditate, try to withdraw yourself mentally from those things which are a part of your life. Let's just sit upright, as I've told you to do before. Calm your body and your mind. Close your eyes and think of the world around you and just withdraw yourself from that. Just sort of let go of them. You could even think of your heart as having strings going out, attaching you to all the different things that you own, all the different projects that you want to accomplish, all the memories that you hold, whether dear or bitterly, and just sort of snip away those cords. Just let go of them. It might even help you to visualize a fire and take each desire out of your heart and throw it into the fire and let it, just watch it burn and be joyful in that burning because it makes you free. So often when we try to give up desires, we think that they're making us less than we were. But in fact, the more you can free yourself of those things, the more you realize that you need nothing, you own nothing, you are whole in yourself. Now then, let us relax the body. Remember I told you to sit straight up, to keep the body relaxed, but you know, it's not that easy to relax the body when the tension is either something you're not actually conscious of, or on such a low level that it hasn't really sort of intruded itself on your attention yet. You may be vaguely aware of it, but it isn't bothering you that much. And yet, lots of little points of tension in your body are enough to keep your mind down. And so, let us now just practice a technique, if you will, to relax the body, and that is to increase the level of tension. By tensing the whole body, what you'll do is, first of all, equalize the tension all over the body. And secondly, what you will do is increase to a level of awareness those parts that are sort of burning low energy. Bring it up to a high level of tension and then relax it all at once. The way to do it is to inhale, tense the whole body till it vibrates. Throw the breath out and relax. Inhale, tense, relax. Do it once more. Tense and relax. Now, hold your body completely still. You'll never be able completely to relax if you allow yourself to fidget. When you meditate, then just tell yourself, I'm not going to move a muscle. Become more centered within your spine. Become more centered in your inner self. Now then, I'm going to take you into deeper relaxation. Keep your eyes closed and feel that you are sitting in the midst of space. Gaze millions of miles to the left of you, millions of miles to the right, millions of miles in front, behind, above, below. There's nothing anywhere except space. You are surrounded by space. Now think of your body, and think first that any lingering tension, sort of like vapor, is emanating from your body in all directions and being lost in space. Hold your body still, concentrate on relaxing it. See that space vapor that tension vapor going out into space. And now imagine that space entering in to the vacuum formed. You've emptied your body of tension, and space is taking over. Space is coming in through the pores of the skin of your feet. Of your calves and shin. Your thigh. Your legs and feet are made of space. Now abdomen, stomach, buttocks, hands, forearms, upper arms, shoulders, chest, throat, neck, sides of the neck, jaw, lips, tongue, the roof of your mouth, your cheeks, your eye muscles, your brain. You are space. Concentrate now at the point between the eyebrows and feel the light there. This light too is without substance, a part of space. Feel that light expanding outward over your forehead, over your brain, into the rest of your head, your neck, going down into your heart, and outward from your heart radiating into the whole body, and beyond the body to infinity in all directions. Now keep concentrating at the point between the eyebrows, and feel yourself going through a tunnel of light into that infinite, so that that sense of space and light are also directed toward your own superconsciousness. Enjoy that state as long as you can. Om, peace, peace. Amen.